Yeah, I am. Oh, well, here we are. At least to get started. We'll see who else shows up. Um, Normally, it's a crapshoot. Don't know if it's going to be
Yeah.
1, 2, 10, 12, 15, or whatever. Better than what I had at the Meadowlands with zero, though. How are things going out there? You guys are staying pretty busy?
We've been busy. People are still buying new equipment. They're spending money. Um, we have a few new products, which has helped with. One of the big things is the mask palette. So that's um, been one of the more popular things this year, just because so many people. That's what kept them going in the early months of all this, was just printing masks before they could start printing shirts again.
So
So
I also work with Action Engineering.
yep,
Eric has probably had the, not probably, has had the best year he's ever had just because of mask palettes.
yeah, yeah. It's
You know,
when everybody in the industry needs to change to do something new.
you have to. Well,
Yeah,
and the reality is, it was, especially at the onset, if you were printing masks, you were considered a business that could be open as opposed to you were an essential business. And
yeah,
so that allowed them to, screen printers to come into the shop and actually work, not only printing masks, but also anything else that they needed to get out, but they were now considered essential businesses.
yeah,
And I think a lot of businesses actually got hurt initially, without a doubt. I mean, I think all of us did, but some of them definitely bailed out and ended up doing some things that were on the more positive side for their business, getting rid of employees that really were quite dead weight, shall we say.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I've heard a lot of that.
You know, I was just up at one of my clients yesterday, and he's having one of the best years he's ever had.
Yeah, and it's. I
Uh,
mean, a lot of people. It's giving them a chance to start looking outside of what they've been doing. You get comfortable, the same customers every year, the same jobs.
well,
You start to
also,
get comfortable. So this makes you think like maybe I need to start doing online. In my personal business, I was shut down. My screen printing business for 6 weeks, and it's the busy season when you're getting into sports, the 5Ks, the I do a lot of pub crawls,
yeah,
all that stuff disappeared. And you start looking, I've been doing a lot of online stuff, doing the online stores, because everybody needs fundraiser, because the people that were doing the 5Ks for charities, they
right.
instead did online stores. So
See, now I could still run a virtual 5K. Matter of fact, Richard Greaves can run a virtual 5K with me.
yeah, yeah,
My
that's what
days
a
of
lot of it was.
actually
It was
having, my days of actually running, I was checking back on my, I used to be a runner. My
yeah, yeah,
last marathon was London in 1986. And I'm
okay.
thinking, holy shit, that's a long time ago.
I'm not going to tell
I,
you how old I was
I
in
still have, I have
1986.
books with all my numbers and all my photos and all that. I should dig them out one day, but I can't remember the
Yeah,
last time I ran an actual race. But I could do a virtual one, no problem.
yeah, yeah. The virtual 5Ks were big because everybody still wanted to do something. Everybody, they'd order their shirts online, get it, and wear their shirt, take
Yeah,
pictures, post it on social media, and the donations go to the charity.
which is really a good thing.
Yeah, yeah, that's a great thing, and it's just finding new avenues for income.
Well, you got to do what you got to do in order to make
Yep.
ends meet. Sheehan, how's it
Oh
going
yeah,
where
definitely.
you are? You're still shut. You're in Sri Lanka right now, yes?
Yeah, yeah.
And
Now the situation is not good here.
you're still on lockdown in Sri Lanka, or are they starting to open up a
Yeah,
bit?
yeah. Still in lockdown. Hope I think in December the government they are going to lock down the Colombo area from 20th to January
Through January, they're going to be
because
locked down in
yeah,
Colombo.
yeah, Colombo area because the cases are increasing day by day now.
Yeah, I know. I was talking to the guys in India, and they're all on lockdown in India.
Yeah, India all messed up it
The only one
the
that's
COVID cases.
worse than they are, as far as all the cases, is us in the U.S. we lead the world. How nice. I know. It's like,
Yeah,
really?
yeah. It's not something you want to lead the world in.
Yeah. And I don't know. They started administering vaccines in London today.
Oh, did
Yeah.
they?
Yeah, London and Bahrain are the two countries that are doing it right now. And I think Bahrain actually started a couple of days ago. I think they were the first in the world. And of course, in the US, we turned down the vaccine back in June. How nice. Because it was nothing more than a flu anyway. So what the hell? We'll see what happens. We'll see if they finally approve it later this week.
Yeah, it'd be good.
Yeah, it would. It would definitely help if we can get. Now, then the next question is, how many people are not going to take it? Because
Yeah, yeah. That's the tough thing. It's
looking around online, there are a lot of them that are saying, "There's no way I'm taking it." It's like, great. From what I understand, 70% of the population has to take it in order for it to really get knocked down.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's correct.
Who knows? We'll see. Do they have plans in Sri Lanka for the vaccine or not yet?
They have introduced one vaccine, means that it's some medical from Sri Lankan Ayurvedic medicine.
Okay.
The one person, he has invented one medicine, but the government still not allowed to get to the Sri Lankan citizens. They have not allowed still,
Yeah.
but that medication that works with he has tested with some patients.
Well, I know we're not part of the World Health Organization, but I understand the WHO has 9 different vaccines available, which the US can't get because we're no longer a member. What a shock. Oh, well. Anyway, slow day today. Richard, how are you doing?
I'm doing terrific. I've been outside doing some yard work, and so I had to scramble in when my phone reminded me to get back inside for this.
Well, hopefully we'll get a few more people on it. We're having one of the warmer days. It's supposed to hit 65 today. So I'm looking forward to getting outside and knocking down a cigar while I can still get outside. Because once winter hits, I'm one of those. It's like, nope, too damn cold to sit outside, and my wife would kill me if I smoked in the house. So that takes care of all of that. So my cigars go to the humidor for most of the duration of the winter, unless
See,
they
Charlie,
goes.
you got to come out to Pennsylvania. My shop that I have, it used to be a bar, so I have smoke eaters in there, so you can smoke in there all day. Be inside in the warmth.
Sounds perfect to me. I can
So
get
next time you're in PA in the cold.
I can get away with smoking cigars when I'm not at home, but when
Yeah,
I'm home, I'm limited to one every other day, assuming the weather is okay.
Yeah.
I make the weather decision, but it's funny. I have a cardiologist, and my wife was on with him saying, "Well, what about smoking?" And he said, "Smoking cigars," and he said, "I don't care about that." I was like, "You're my cardiologist. I'm all over that one. Thank you so much." Because the other cardiologist said, "Oh, you shouldn't really smoke." I know that. I puff on a damn cigar once every other day if I can.
Yeah, yeah.
Will it eventually kill me? I don't know. Something will anyway. So whatever it might be, I'll deal with that. Still early in the going. Huh?
Yeah.
I'm expecting actually one of the guys, Irfan from Pakistan, and I forgot the guy's name from Istanbul, who's involved with silicone inks. And
Okay.
he was on a couple of weeks ago, and they're supposed to be on. Just want to kind of get a feel for what's going on in the other parts of the world. We're so consumed with what goes on here because of the disaster that we have going on here, that you kind of forget about the fact that the rest of the world is under some of the same conditions that we are, although not to the same extent.
Yeah.
Shion,
Yes, sir.
has that new director gotten taken over and started putting in classes, or are you putting in classes and anything in the institute there?
Yeah, that new vice chancellor he has newly appointed from October. So yeah, so we had one meeting with him, Zoom meeting. So new academic year will start. I think will start next year February, around February, end of February they will start the new academic year for the new students.
So,
So
the school is-
still we
it's
are conducting
okay.
online classes.
Okay. Well, that's
So
good.
all the universities are already closed. So we are doing the theory part from online because we can't do any practical sessions, and it's not going to be
Yeah,
work.
I know. You know, I've printed some of the best designs ever online. Just nobody sees them. So oh well. I was going through some of the. My wife wants me to clear out my basement. This is where I do all my painting and all my other junk.
Yeah,
Close to my office.
I love that painting.
Oh well, thank you. But I was going through and I dug out some of the older things that I was involved with back when I was actually a printer. I really did print for a living for a while, although it was all bootleg, but I did do that. And once in a while you come across something, it's like, wow, I did that. I found the very first 4-color process piece that I won an award on, which was back in 1980 when the first Golden Image Awards were done. So I won 2 at that show. I got 2 bronzes, one for a KISS design and one for a running design, runner's design actually. And I found it framed. It's like, wow, I didn't even know I had it anymore.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
that
first
was,
4-color print.
yeah. So these are back from 1970 something, but kind of fun to dig out some of the old stuff and look at it and realize that won an award. Today that wouldn't even be considered for as a bad piece, but probably as a horrible piece. Oh well. So the King Tut design that I sent you, Paul, that was actually put together in 1979. That was the first time I ever spoke formally at a major piece was 1980 in a technical symposium in Pittsburgh. And there was rumors that there were people coming to that were going to dispute the way in which I printed black shirts. And so that King Tut design was printed on about 350 Pellons with my company logo on the underside, which was Great American Screen Designs. And so when people came to the symposium, they were handed one of these printed pieces. And there were probably 250, 300 people that showed up. And when I had my turn to speak, I was really grateful about the fact that the person in front of me took more time than they needed to. And and my comment was, you know what? I can abbreviate mine, which was really good because I was crapping in my pants at the time. I'd never dealt with that many people, period.
Yeah.
I was one of those who got a D or a C or a D in speech when I was in college. And I was thrilled because I didn't have to take the class again, never having to deal with 15 people in front of me. In any event, I passed out all of these pieces, and it was the King Tut design. And so when it came my turn, number one, I blew through it in about 15 minutes. I don't know if anybody understood me because my teeth were banging together so hard, but never got any real response in terms of negatives about how to print a black shirt, only because they were holding the results in their hands.
Yeah. If you show it to them, you can't dispute it if you have proof in front of you.
And that was the way I looked at it, was if you have it in your hand, what are you going to tell me, that you can't do it? But if you can't
Yeah.
do it, what the hell is in your hand? But
Yeah, yeah.
that was before the day of the flash unit. And so that was considered pretty good back in the day. In today's world, the reality is it's well, it's a good example of what you can do when you don't flash, but it's certainly not a good example of what really good printing can look like.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm excited to print that because we have the screens made. We were
Well, you can
originally going to have you out for the class.
So the thing is, they were all done with Union inks back then. That was my go-to situation. And it was all max opaque. As a matter of fact, some of the colors in the line were because of us. We ordered 50-gallon drums of it so often that Union finally just put it in their line rather than considering it a custom color. But,
Okay.
you know, color order, I mean, the original ones that I had of that, I sent up to a company up in Minnesota for the SGIA show back in that time period, and never got my film back. And so I actually had to make up one of those pieces of film in order to be able to do the print. And I'd been sitting on it for, I don't know, quite a few years, and finally decided, you know what, it's time. So I sat it and hand stippled the last piece of film, which fortunately is.
Noticed the one looks a little different than the others.
It is. It was a throw together deal because the original one actually was done with a combination of stippling and camera work and some. I don't know if we used any Rubylith in that one, in that particular color, but we did use Rubylith and stuff to do quite a bit of artwork, but a lot of camera work and then cutting and pasting.
Okay.
Anyway.
Yeah, that's all before my time in the industry. So I'm fortunate that I came into the industry when we could print it on a regular inkjet printer. So never had to do the hand cut, the Rubylith, nothing like that.
I'll tell you what, you know, some of that is unfortunately a lost art, and I think it's unfortunate because a lot of it is really pretty cool. I mean, I trained Doug Brendel years ago, and I have to admit, he is the fastest I've ever seen someone work with an X-Acto knife. I mean, he could actually compete with a camera.
Wow.
He was amazing at doing detail, etc. Of course, no halftone work, but great stuff. The thing with using any of those old techniques, you can certainly get some great effects out of them. And, you know, like anything else, I think it's always good to have some of that old background and know how to do things the way they were done. Back when I was in college, I was a painting major, but I had a minor in printmaking. And one of the things we had to do was take an old litho stone, which was from back at the turn of the previous century, and had images on it because that's how they used to do a lot of the printing. And we had to bring that back up and be able to pull the print off of that stone. And so those were all limestones. And learning how to do that and how to close a stone down using gum arabic and all the other things was really great. Of course, in today's world, most colleges don't have stones anymore. They use metal plates, which don't give you the same effect. The stones were great. And you know, the reason I never took silk screening in college is because I thought it was stupid with this mesh moving around. 500-pound stone, nothing moved. I mean, it was solid. But, you know, times have changed. Anyway, what's new at Vastex in terms of equipment or anything else?
Right now, we mentioned the mask palette. We have our craft printer now. So we came out with a very entry level press. So inexpensive, but it's the same quality. I'll actually spin around and bring that on the screen real quick. But we like it because we have our steel palettes, same print head as on our V100, similar to the V1000. So the nice thing is we can do that higher quality at a much lower cost. So nice steel pallet here. We have a floating print head, so you don't have to worry about losing your registration. We can print 500 shirts and it's going to lock in the same every time. Still have our off contact adjustment, the pitch adjustment, everything that you kind of expect on the press is still there. You have your off contact is here. There's 2 bolts for your pitch pitch adjustment. But yeah, still the same steel quality, steel, nice sturdy construction as our other presses. V1000's there, spin around V2000. Only thing I'm missing here is our V100, and that's about our entire line of presses. But other than that, we got a few other things in the works. Nothing that I can really talk too much about right now. Some new dryers. We're working on dryers more for actually for more European countries, just because their amp draw we can't be doing 50, 60 amp dryers for some of the European countries. So we're working on little things like that. But always doing our best to take what we already have and just make it better too.
Nice. I love working with your presses. So, I mean, but I must admit the entry level one, when I was in South Africa a couple of years ago, they ordered it unassembled.
Yep.
I never want to assemble one of those again. Never. It was a day-long situation. It was tedious as hell. It's like, don't ever do that to me again. If you're going to order one of those for the show, order it already put together, because it was incredibly difficult.
Yeah, anytime we do that, we send them assembled for shows. That's the V100 that you're talking about, because that was by a 4-color, 4-station. So everything you had to do 4 times.
Not only that, but then you have to get it all synchronized so that everything is sitting in the same space. I mean, it was not what I'll ever want to do again. As a matter of fact, if they ever ask me to do it again, it's like, nope, find someone else.
Yeah, I had to put one together for the first time because we videotaped it to put an instructional video together to go along with the owner's manual.
It's an 8-hour video on how to put it together.
We cut it down quite a bit. I think I spent between video. I think I spent half the day working on it, but it's one of those things that I was doing it for the first time, so I took my time. Directions were great. I give the engineering guys credit because they were really detailed in the directions, because I don't want to mess up on video, but it came together and it was a nice, easy entry level press and good sturdy press. So you shouldn't have to worry about anything. But the nice thing is assembling it, knowing where the parts are, it helps you if you ever do have an issue, the nuts and bolts of that press, which is really nice.
What I found was I did put things together improperly a couple of times because maybe the directions weren't quite as explicit as I thought they should have been. So
okay,
I put it together and then take it apart, which was driving me crazy, but part of the deal.
Yeah, we've made some changes. So
again,
we've made some changes in the directions, because every time we have if somebody calls and say, hey, I don't understand this, we go look at the directions and say, how can we make this clearer for the customers, just so they don't run into these issues. So we've gone through quite a few revisions on the manual for that too.
Great. So Lisa, Sean, you're going under the name Lisa Bibb now?
Oh, damn it. Well, I'm signed in through Gap, so sorry, I'll fix
Gap
that.
Office Lisa Bibb. It's like, really, Lisa, you've cut your hair.
There.
Oh, that much better. How are you doing?
Good. How about you?
Good. I got a message from Eric that he thinks he has the revised wall almost ready to ship this week. And I'll let you know how that worked out. I've had the original one over at Denver Print House. They seem to be doing okay with it, but the modifications that we made were tremendous, to allow it to do everything from a flood bar that's 16 inches wide down to a sleeve print at 4 inches wide. We'll see how that all works out. I'm waiting to get it so I can do some more testing.
How can they
I'd like to
adjust
get it
that if the,
Huh?
how can they adjust it down the 4-inch wide if the actual squeegee and flood bar frames are that wide? Are they going to a shorter flood bar frame?
Yes, I mean, you'll be able to put in flood bars anywhere from 16-inch width down to a 4-inch width.
Got it.
And,
Okay.
and the walls will move inward to accommodate.
Very cool.
So I'm going to see if I can get Eric to make a second one and get it over to your shop. See what you can do with it, since you're
We're
doing a fair amount of water base right now as well.
we're printing a 350 piece tank top order of all things right now with water base.
Whatever works, you know.
Hi, Richard.
Sean, do you know Paul at all from Vastex?
No, he's not the cowboy hatted guy that we always see at the shows,
No,
right?
that's
Yeah,
Doug.
that's Doug. I need something to stand out more so people recognize me. I go to a lot of shows, but I don't have a cowboy hat. So
Yeah, and he's like,
they always-
what,
they always remember
6'3" or
Doug.
something.
Yeah, yeah. I'm the same height as Doug, but I don't have the cowboy hat on. So I just disappear in the background, I guess.
Well, you know, you get overshadowed by people like Charlie and him, and
Yeah,
Yeah.
they were doing this long before I was even born. So I'll always refer to them if I have questions, though.
That's true. So you and I met many years back doing some of the shows. How long have you been with Vastex now?
I'm at almost 9 years now.
Okay. So and we've worked shows overseas together.
Yep. Yeah, I've been to Germany a few times. I was excited for the Spain show this year because you were with us in the booth for Spain,
Yeah.
but we know what happened there. But yeah, it's been overseas quite a few times.
Yeah. I'm wondering if if Vespa's going to be able to pull off their show in Amsterdam or not.
Yeah. That's what's that?
well,
February. That's early in the year.
Yeah. That's in March. But Europe,
March.
you know, England now is getting the vaccine.
Mhm.
And so I think it comes down to what other countries are going to get it, and what their curve is actually going down pretty well. The biggest problem is they won't let anybody from the US in, which
Yeah.
I totally understand. So it comes down, because I don't know if you've ever been to Amsterdam, fun town.
I've only been to Europe a few times, and it's all Germany for the trade shows. So
Well, everybody's always wanted to go to Amsterdam so they could smoke dope. Now it's legal in the US, so it's taken away a little bit of that. It's tarnished the idea of going to Amsterdam. But
well, especially you're in Colorado, so you were one of the early adopters there. You're
we were the first, yes. We also, you know, the funny thing is, I have yet to go into a dispensary. I mean, I
Really?
smoked enough dope when I was in college to last a lifetime. So I passed on that. But they did also legalize mushrooms, and only did those a couple of times in college, which were pretty awesome, actually. I was one of those guys who refused to take LSD because I had no idea how stable I was, and I wasn't going to try and find out. So I passed on doing acid. But
so Paul,
Yeah.
not to change the subject or anything.
no, moving along here. Anyway,
What
I'd love to go back to Amsterdam. One of the funniest things, I have a client who lives in Amsterdam, and the house that he's in sits on a corner, and across the street is the old church, which is really a beautiful old church, and it's kind of funny. An artist set up on the sidewalk there inside of a tent, was kind of making believe he was doing something for the government or whatever. Was in it for about a week, came out and broke down and left. And what he had done was he had a cast of a pair of breasts that he embedded into the sidewalk. And they tried to get him out and they couldn't. So now they call it a tribute to the red light zone. Okay. Which is funny because that also starts right across the street from the church. So everything is right there, but they couldn't get rid of their two metal breasts that just stand out of the sidewalk in front of the church.
Yeah, yeah.
So Paul, I've got to jump off real quick for another thing for a short call, but is there anything new that Vastex is coming out with, or
yeah, when you come back, he'll go through it again.
Again?
Yeah, you missed the first
Yeah, you
part.
already missed it. I can chat about that again.
All right, I'll talk to you when I come back in.
Bye.
Thanks.
I'm trying to think if I was missing anything else new here.
I don't know. You have your registration system there?
Yep, I do have that.
You may want to drag that out. Richard, have you've worked in Amsterdam or you haven't?
Yes, I went to FESPA's, let's say, I think 84, 88. In that, when,
Yeah, I know.
all the ones in the
They used to
80s.
Yeah, they used to have it in Amsterdam a lot. I never got to doing FESPA there. My first FESPA show was 1999, which was in Munich. And I was born not far from there. I don't think most people know. I was born in Germany, but I was born in a little town called Mittenwald. My parents were Holocaust survivors. And so after the war, they couldn't go back to Poland. Although my mother wasn't in a concentration camp, my father was. My mother was in Siberia at a gulag. But they couldn't relocate back to Poland. So they had to go to a relocation center in Germany, and they settled in a small town called Mittenwald, which is about 45 minutes out of Munich. So when I went to Munich for the first time, I decided, I really should see where I was born. Took the train there figuring, what the hell. The damn train empty there. It's a tourist town and it's known for the mountain on the other side for hiking. And so yesterday my wife called me over. She said, you got to see this photo. This is one of our friend's sons who's now living in Munich and is a hiker. And here he is in Mittenwald climbing, although he's in waist-high snow, climbing up this mountain. And I was talking to my other friends in Germany. They vacation there during the summer. They live in Dusseldorf, but during the summer they go down there and vacation. So kind of funny. It's known for violin making, not for screen printing, unfortunately. But my days. But I never. But 99 was my first show, and I've gone to Munich quite a number of times. Amsterdam, I've done some work, and I did work with Nike Europe over there, and they have a pretty nice campus, but it's a fun town. It's a weird town, but of course, now that you can smoke pot anywhere, it changes things. Of course, everybody talks about the red light district. There's more skin on a beach in the US than in the red light district. Big deal. Oh, well. But you did do the early shows there, the ones in the early 80s, huh?
Yes. The first year I just went on my own, 84, just to see what was going on and to get a taste there. So I went and John Mason was my basic host then, as minor as that was. But later on.
Today is John's birthday, by the way.
I did not know that.
Well, there you go.
You've got all the dates now.
Interrupt you. Go ahead.
So, so then in 88, I went over as part of Screen Printing Magazine, and they put me up, and then I stayed later on, and I went with Paul Selenica to Sati, and that was my first trip there. but I think for the next 10 years, I probably went every other year to Sati to do something. And that was my main, my main learning experiences there.
Yeah, well,
But I've been with every one up until 2006, which was in Berlin. That's the last one I went to.
okay. Yeah, I did Berlin, but not in 2006. I think Berlin was about 3 or 4 years ago. I can't remember. Paul, you weren't in Berlin, so it's got to be about 3 years ago.
Yeah, it's 3 years ago. 2 or 3 years ago, I was in Berlin.
Okay, yeah, for the show, yeah, it was.
Yep.
Last year.
Because there was another. They did Germany again after that.
Yeah,
what did they do?
So the number one country in Europe really for screen printing is Germany. And that's why they have the shows there that often. Because if they get the local crowd, then they're going to end up with a lot of people. Obviously, the show that probably had the least attendance was the one in England, just because it was their 25th anniversary or whatever of FESPA. And so they did it in London. And of course, a lot of people didn't want to go to London because of the cost. I mean, London is horribly expensive. You know, you look at something and say, oh, well, it's only £3. And it's like, yeah, £3. It's $4 and change in the US, you know? And so a lot of people bailed on doing the UK, which I love going to. They speak English, even if it's funny. But yeah, last year it was in Munich.
Munich, yeah.
And then
that one I didn't go to. I didn't get a chance to go to that one.
Yeah,
I did Stuttgart, Hamburg. I did both of those.
Yeah. So last year in Munich, the biggest issue was the year before that, it was in Hamburg. And the textile area took up 2 halls. Last year in Munich, the textile area took up less than a half a hall.
Yeah.
You know, and it's kind of like, wow, this used to be the show for exhibiting what's new, what's different outside of SGIA, because it was every 3rd year or every 4th year. And now they've made it every year. And quite honestly, the show that's probably the best in the world is ISS or Impression Expo Long Beach.
Yeah.
It has absolutely, without even trying, become the best show in the world.
Yeah, that's a great show to go to.
In the early 1980s, there was nothing about textiles. Not nothing, but very, very little, because Europe still had not really accepted it.
Yeah, no, I agree. That was one of the reasons, you know, in terms of, was I interested in going over the FESPA? I didn't know much about it. You didn't hear much about it in the US, only because if you're in textiles, it was not a place to go. And when I went over in '99, I went over there working for Richmond Graphics and for Rutland Inc. I worked with both companies, kind of jumping from one booth to the other. It was an interesting show because textiles were first really starting to come up a bit, but still didn't have anything to do with the size of what the US market was like. Different time. All I know is, when that was my first overseas show, and pretty overwhelming actually, because of all the other stuff that they have there. SGIA was always good, but you got to know everyone there, and then coming into unknown countries was pretty interesting. Got your, yeah, may as well wait for Sean, huh?
Yeah.
Okay, well, this is break time, so.
That's good to take a break. You don't want to talk nonstop for that long.
Yeah.
I got my VRS ready next to me, so we can chat VRS then.
Huh?
We can chat VRS then. I have that sitting next to me, so whenever you want to talk about that.
You know, I've played with that. I like that registration system. I think it works quite well.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, I've used it on your machinery, and I did put together a whole thing. As a matter of fact, I'm doing a presentation for the Impressions Expo, the virtual thing, on putting in a integrated registration system, and I do mention that one among others. The one thing about all of those systems is they really don't start in the art department. They start after the art department, although the artwork is done. And so I've kind of gone back to getting it started in the art department. And one of these days I'll finish writing the book that I'm working on if I can ever get myself focused enough on it. Trying to put in technical stuff and then go back to some of the earlier days of what went on in the industry. And coming up with some of the names. Richard, you were part of that whole thing with Duke Dalton and
Yep.
and Jeffrey Gitomer before he became a marketing guru. What was the other name that he used when he was in this industry?
Rick Martin.
Thank you. It was driving me crazy the other day because I remember Angela Jones and I were quite friendly. So were you with her. And she said, "Oh, that's
yeah.
Martin." And I'm thinking, no, that's Jeffrey Gitomer. She knew him as Rick Martin. And so it was like, why would he have two names? Anyway.
He had some sort of a non-compete with a guy in Florida and couldn't do business for a certain number of years. And he wrote several articles for Screen Printing Magazine in the late 70s, I think 78, 79, something like that.
You know,
as Rick Martin.
He was one of the guys, when I went to my first SPA show in 77, I brought some shirts with me, black shirts, you know, bunch of different rock and roll stuff. And I met Jerry Gourdet there.
Ah.
Okay. And so I showed him the shirts. So he went running over to Duke Dalton to tell him about it. And Duke Dalton said, "That can't be done."
Oh.
So that was seriously, that was, you can't do that. And so I pull out my shirts and there's, you know, 6-color print on a black shirt. And it was that may, I take it back. There may have been 78. I'm not 77, 78. I can't remember exactly. And so Duke had to eat his words in front of Jerry Gourdet, which of course was very difficult for him to do since Jerry was looking up to him at that time.
Right.
That's how, and then the following year I was asked to speak at the textile division meeting, which if you remember was—
It used to be a big deal.
Oh, it was great stuff because we would go on till midnight. We would have the quick meeting in the afternoon. We'd meet at after 5. And I can remember going on till midnight with Mark Vennett being a wizard, giving away dollar bills to right answers and stuff. So anyway, they asked me if I would be willing to do a seminar again with Joe Clark. And it was going to be 2 opposing views of how to print a shirt. And so, and that's how I got to meet and become friends with Joe. So his premise was, you should be printing on contact because then you won't have any distortion. And I totally agreed with that, except for one thing. You wouldn't have distortion. You would have a blurred image.
Blur, yeah.
Mesh would be moving all over the damn place. And so that was the first time I actually got to speak, which was kind of fun. And doing it with Joe, especially back in those days, if you remember what Joe was like before he got his act together the correct way, when he was still with Flexible Products, or he may have even been with J Products at that time. I don't remember.
He would have been at J at that time, in the 70s.
But that was my first speaking engagement of any kind. But you know, when you're dealing with nothing but textile people in a evening environment, it's kind of a comfortable situation, as opposed to when I did my first formal one in Pittsburgh. That one scared the hell out of me. You know, when 300 people show up, it's like, wow, I'm not sure I'm ready for this. But those were the early days that I'm trying to write about.
In the 80s and 90s, after the impression shows, there used to be not open houses, but meetings where we'd get together.
Right.
And those where we'd literally hang out and get to talk with people. There
Yep.
were the like I'm trying to think of the right word for them, but little cocktail parties that would be afterwards. And Advance was notorious because they just had way too many people invited, and so you'd see younger fellas try and sneak in, get a couple of beers, and then go out into the hallway. But the ones that I was attracted to, which would be especially the Stretch Devices ones,
Yeah.
in
Well,
85 and
he threw the best parties back in those days, and
I like
had the most interesting food. The thing with Don was he would always go off the deep end on food, which I'm a big fan of. But I remember he came out to Denver for one of my open houses. He came out quite a few times, and there was I screwed it up. How do I do that? How do I get back on here?
You're on now. I see you.
Yeah, you see me, but I don't see you guys.
No, all right. I'm still
I
here.
slid my hand over the. I have a Mac, and I slid my hand over the over the pad, and it moved everything over. Let me see if I can. Nah. In any event, hey, I'm back. So anyway, Don came out. There was a place in downtown Denver at an old brewery called the Rattlesnake Club, which was at that time a very, very high-end exclusive restaurant. Really tremendous menu. And so we went there with, it was myself, my wife, Don, probably about 4 or 5 of us. Don ordered every single appetizer on the menu, took one bite of each and nothing else. And it's like, what are you going to do with the rest of it? He said, well, I don't really care. I just wanted to taste it. Anything that was on the interesting side, he would try out, which I commend him for. I love doing that. I mean, that's one of the things I'm hoping to travel again and hope to do a show in Guangzhou, China, so that I can hit the night market and finally get to eat some deep fried scorpions and deep fried tarantulas. Always curious about food. Anyway, those are things I'm trying to write about, huh?
We had the first Stretch open house or cocktail party. I don't know I'm trying to think of a better name for it, but we had the first one at the LA SGIA show. Would have been 84, 85, something like that.
At the
And
museum.
Well, no, it was at the Figueroa. It was at the Figueroa Hotel. It was the first one, and Donald sent Maggie Long out to his favorite delicatessen, and she brought all sorts of Philadelphia delicacies, and that's what started that ball rolling. But we had in Houston, I found an art gallery during the SGIA show that we took over the art gallery and put down a bond in case we knocked over anything. In Atlanta, we, the pain in the ass in Atlanta a few years later, we went to a medical college and had it in an arena where they used to do operations where you could actually see. So it's more of a museum in that area now.
You did the Peterson Museum one year out in LA.
Yep.
I don't remember. I know I've gone to quite a number of them way back. I don't remember which my first one was because generally we had enough to drink where you couldn't remember anything the next day.
But they were real screen printing discussions. It wasn't just drinking.
Oh no, so, it was definitely it was great. I mean, you didn't go there just to drink and just to eat. You definitely went there to socialize, to talk screen print. Maybe not even business, just screen print. And unfortunately, in later years, um, that all dried up. I mean, Don certainly had his party, but there were always a bunch of parties. And,
Hmm.
you always went jumping from one to the next to the next. Um, Always a lot of fun, always educational, and when digging out to see who you could find, and a lot of it was there weren't as many shows back then, so shows were a bigger deal because you took advantage of the fact that you wouldn't see anyone again for quite some time.
Right.
And everybody waited, especially at the SGIA show. They sat on
Their announcements.
new until that show. Oh well, times have changed. Seem to have lost Sean. We've picked up some other people, but I don't know who's who because they're blacked out. It's and no sound coming out of them either, or visuals. Oh well,
Yeah, they just want to watch.
that's all right. Listen to old timers chatting. Maybe.
That's what I'm doing. I'm listening to you guys chatting. That's before my time.
Oh yeah, definitely is. Um, some of it was back in the '70s, which was fun. I got in '76. Richard, what you got in about that?
1979.
'79. Okay. Yeah,
But I
70.
Yeah, I
worked
was
for
born in '84, so
Well, there you go. In '79, the show, the SGIA show, or SPA, which is still what it was in Hollywood,
Hollywood.
Florida. Yeah, at the Diplomat Hotel. And it was the first time I ever went to Joe's Stone Crab, which
Ah,
was amazing. I think we went there 2 or 3 times during the show. But that was the first time I got to see a Newman roller frame. You went to the Podger Company and they gave you a time slot and told you what room to take the elevator to up on top of the building, whatever. And at my appointed time, I went there with a friend of mine from London, Harry Tucker from the Great British T-Shirt Company. And so the two of us went up. Don was just finishing up with a graphics company out of New Jersey, really large one from back then. And he had this frame out, and it was probably about a 3 foot by 3 foot screen or something like that, maybe 4 foot, 4 foot. And these guys were blown away because this screen had 15 newtons. And it was like, oh my God, 15 newtons. They bought $10,000 worth of frames at that show. So Harry and I looked at each other and said, well, it must be okay. So we each bought a dozen. And it didn't resemble what today's frames even look like. I mean, the channels were much narrower. No one knew anything about softening corners yet. So at 15, if you went beyond 15, you blew out your mesh because it just caught the corner. But I remember going to London about a year or so later, came into Harry's shop, and all the screens were still sitting against the wall untouched because he couldn't figure out how in the hell to stretch one. I had finally learned a bit about it, not much, but it was far more of a challenge than what today's world is like. So yeah, did you go to that first show, or was that your first show or not?
no, my first show was later on when it was in Roselle near the O'Hare.
Yeah,
I think it was 81.
I remember that one very well.
I was working in my hometown, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, at Eater Manufacturing, and we drove down, and that is where I met Jeffrey Gamer's brother-in-law, who was running the press, and Mel Green was literally talking into a microphone, announcing things. And again, it was a small show.
Oh yeah,
very small show.
I was there. I was at I haven't missed any, but I was there working with Precision. And one of the things that they brought along was a wallpaper printer. And so they were printing, so it was a one color wallpaper printer which you could then re-roll and then run a second
again.
color and then re-roll and run a third. And it's the type of stuff that they did for Boeing for the interior of airplanes. Only, of course, for Boeing, it was on a much, much bigger level. And I remember the big complaint was they had to hire union workers to assemble this for them, but they didn't know how. So they had to hire the union guys who sat on the floor while the precision guys put it together. But they had to pay the union guys for that press. It cost them 25 grand for the union help to quote unquote put it together and take it apart for which was back in 81 or whatever it was. That was just an outrageous amount of money. And that's why I don't think we didn't do any more shows in Chicago after that.
No, Chicago was notorious.
Yeah, the union was brutal and you had no choice. So, I remember Len Herman even back then saying, if it's in Chicago, we're not going.
Exact. So.
Because, 25 grand at that time, I mean, I don't think most people understood how much that was. But I think back in 81 or so, if you were making $300 a week, that was considered really pretty damn good.
Good pay,
so,
yeah.
So you're looking at 25 grand. What, almost a year and a half's worth of salary? Interesting. Yeah, so they never did another show in Chicago. That's why people say, how come they don't do Chicago? Because the unions will kill them.
Well, that was the problem in Philly too when we were doing the Philadelphia show. Is
right.
We couldn't use power tools, we couldn't shrink wrap our own equipment,
right?
And you'd have to have a union guy come over, give them our shrink wrap, and they can wrap our equipment at the end of the day. So it made it tough.
The only good thing about the Philadelphia show was it was right down the road, right down the street from the market. And so,
Terminal, the Reading Terminal Market.
I remember I loved going there. So as the show ended, I'd go there. And I remember one night, it's like, damn, I don't know what I want to eat. And there was a bakery in the market. I ended up buying a major loaf of bread, went up to my room, turned on the TV and ate the bread for dinner without anything on it. No meats, no nothing, which I love a really good rustic bread anyway. And it's like, I don't need anything beyond this. This is good.
Yeah, that was the good thing about Philly. I go to lunch at the Reading Terminal Market. I'm a Philly guy, so we're about an hour and a half north of there. So I went to school in Philly. I got married in Philly. I like the city. So I didn't need to go for a show. I can just drive down whenever I want now.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what, and so the big issue is who makes the best Philly cheesesteak?
Not Pat's or Gino's. Those are the touristy ones.
No,
what is it?
John's.
John's on South Street is the best.
John's.
The locals, when you talk to people in Philly, they say go to John's. Tourists go to Gino's and Pat's because they're the popular.
So when I do finally come out there, I do plan on trying to take a shot over to Philly and hit the Terminal Market. So there's one place in the Terminal Market that also, or a couple of them that do cheesesteak.
Nick's roast beef.
Okay, which is supposed to be pretty good. I mean, I think I've had theirs.
They're all good.
Of course they are.
But John's on Schneider, south of there, near the waterfront, near IKEA, would be where I would say is the best. Otherwise, I used to go to Jim's all the time.
Jim's is the one I'm saying. That's on South Street.
And John's on Schneider.
I love going to South Street. That was one of my favorite places to, if you're into the arts, there were enough galleries and enough things going on South Street for a tourist like me to really enjoy it.
There was a club I used to go to, a comedy club, nightclub, kind of a place. Saw quite a few people, known comics. So I remember that, I remember it fondly.
Yeah, I've been to a lot of concerts down in Philly. Some at Tower Theater. That's a smaller venue, so it's great to go to a show there.
So back in my bootleg days, when the Rolling Stones were doing JFK Stadium, It was a 6-day long show. And so we would go there to sell, obviously, Rolling Stone shirts. The biggest amount that we sold in one night, after the first night concert, the next morning there was $65,000 in cash on my desk. By the afternoon, there wasn't 2 cents because we had to buy more shirts for the rest of to continue doing the show.
Season, yeah.
And so I wasn't making much money, even though I was one of the owners. So I actually took like 10 dozen shirts, put them in a duffel bag, and went down to Philly to sell in the parking lot, which I did. That was one of the heaviest shows we ever did. That was definitely fun. But I think it was JFK Stadium at that time. I don't know what they call it now, or even if it exists. I mean, they've got all of the newer venues. But I do have the shirt, not the shirt, I have a picture of the shirt from back in that time frame. And we then did a shirt for Union Inc. based on that. Let me see if I have the picture of it. So back then, of course, it said the Rolling Stones. We were doing quite a bit of Union's promotional stuff. So this is a shirt that actually won a bronze, but if you can see that, it's called the Rolling Tones for the tones of the shirt. Can you see that? There you go.
Nice.
And of course, we took we put a woman up front instead of Mick Jagger, because somehow Mick Jagger on a Union for Union Inc. wasn't going to work out very well. But
Yeah, probably good you change that.
But that was 6 colors on a black shirt with no flash.
Wow.
So
Now, was that all Maxopay gangs?
nothing but. Matter of fact, when we started, my biggest account was in the 70s, was actually a company in London called Mobile Merchandising. And we got them started on rock and roll, and they were much smarter than us. They actually went legitimate and were doing all of the groups legitimately, and we were doing their artwork. So back then, to do a piece like that, we charged $1,000 to design and separate it, which, today everybody would say, oh, you're out of your mind. Back then, that was a huge amount of money, but we guaranteed that you shot the film and you printed it and it came out right, or you didn't pay. One design that we didn't work out with a group called the B-52s, but other than that, I don't know, it was 40 to 50. I'm still friendly with the guys, but they're all out of the screen print industry. They went into the food industry. As a matter of fact, one of them owns a Michelin star restaurant, Trevor Gulliver. But they went legitimate, and one of the managing directors of the company, who said, oh, rock and roll will never do that crap, became the merchandise manager for the Rolling Stones and probably banked in excess of 50 million pounds as their manager of their merchandise. They would sell massive amounts. What was always interesting is when we had to do Kiss for them, if Kiss was going to Germany, you had to change the double S's. You had to round them out, because otherwise you went to jail. They would confiscate the shirts because it was SS, as in the Nazi SS. So we had to take the S's and round out the tops and bottoms so that they wouldn't look like the Nazi SS. And I think to this day, you still have issues there in terms of certain Nazi era situations. Oh well.
So what else we got?
No, not much, and we didn't get back to Sean. So why don't you give me a quick rundown on your registration system, and
Yeah,
I
sure.
think we'll probably call this one a day.
Yeah, make me get back to work, I guess, huh?
Yeah, well, some of us do get to work. I'm finishing up right now.
All right. So yeah, I'll give you a quick rundown on it because I know you like it. I love using the VRS for, especially on my auto. It makes things a whole lot quicker. So this is the registration station. It's basically a two-piece system. This is your pin board. So this is where you're lining up your artwork. I'll pull this off. So we have our grid. We'll take a clear carrier sheet, put it on there. We already have our first piece of artwork on there. So we're taping down our artwork onto the clear carrier sheet. We'll put another carrier sheet on there, tape down your next artwork. So you're basically lining up all your artwork to itself. So you're doing most of your registration here. Let me grab a screen real quick. And we just happen to have a roller screen here. So you'll basically put either double-sided tape or tape upside down facing up. So you'll have your coded screen, 3 stops, put your screen against the stops, press it down, have the tape stick, pull it off. So the nice thing is that artwork's coming off on the same place on every screen. We'll go shoot our screen on the exposure unit. That's basically what you do for each color. If it's a 1 color, you can do that. 10 color, it all works the same way. The next part is we'll come over to the press. We have a matching jig to go on the press, and we make them for, obviously our presses, but really any manual, rear clamp, side clamp. We custom make them for all the automatics. We have one specific for the rock since we are a distributor of rock, but any automatic, we've made them for just about every brand. We've made the registration system for. So what we do here is bring down my screen. I'm moving my palette a little bit. And then when you look at the palette jig, let's pull that off real quick. This goes right onto your palette, locks down. You have your 3 stops there. So that matches the registration jig that we had before. So that, you'll push your screen in so it hits all 3 stops. Lock it down. And then you're pretty darn close to registered. You might have to bump it a hair. The more patience you have lining up your artwork, you could go right in and start printing this. You might have to bump one head. Last time I set up one of the autos at a show, we did a 6-color job. I think out of the 6, I had to bump 1 millimeter, and I was dead on the rest. So it's nice to take some of that setup time because obviously we know the faster you get to printing, the better. You want to get printing because that's where you're making the money, not on the setup. So that's our registration system.
Terrific.
So
All
quick
right.
rundown. And then we have a smaller, light version of it, but this is our full registration system.
All right. Paul, thanks so much for being on. I think we're going to call this one a day.
Sure.
Join us whenever you want. I do these every other Tuesday. I just have to remind Richard periodically to come on, but other than that, not too bad. Gian,
You have to set myself a reminder for these.
I do post it online, but I probably, if you go to my website now, at the bottom of it, it always shows who the next one is. So
Okay.
if you go there, you'll see your face on it. But and I've just redone my whole website, so I need to get people to view it and tell me what they think in terms of is it easy to get through or not? Is there anything about it that they would change? I'm going to post that online to see if I can get some feedback. But other than that, nice having you guys on. Stay safe and hope to see you guys in a couple of weeks again.
Yep, thanks a lot. Well, I'll talk to you soon, and we'll get a class out here for you.
That'd be great. Have a good day, all. Bye.
Have a good one.
Okay, stay safe, sir. Thank you.
Bye now. By the way, the video of this will be on my website.